Go at Let Mobile, and let's begin. The agenda for today is I'll start by discussing the bring your own device phenomena, then spend some more time on our solution both from the user perspective and from the IT perspective, discuss a few alternative solutions in the market, or better said, alternative approaches in the market, share a few case studies, and leave time to hear from Ariel Pissetz, who's here with me. He is a CIO at 888, and we would hear from him about his experience in adopting and deploying Let Mobile for 888. You may, of course, ask questions using the chat on the GoToWebinar session. I'll try to answer as much as I can at the end of this webinar, and if I'm not able to answer all of your questions, I'll make sure to reach out to you separately and make sure that you get all the information. So let's start the bring your own device phenomena. This is just an amusing slide to start with, showing that people are getting very, very attached to their smart mobile devices. And on a more serious note, over 2/3 of recently acquired devices are smartphones. So as we can all see around us, smartphones are taking over, and quite fast. But interestingly, most of them are personally acquired. Most of them are being bought by individuals and are then introduced into the corporate network. But if you ask employees when do they check their work email, you can see that basically all the time and from everywhere. So people want to be connected, they bring in their own personal device, and they expect to connect it to the corporate network. Now, this new phenomena creates some major shifts in the IT market today. Basically, it is fair to say that IT cannot treat a smart mobile device as if it was a corporate laptop, for example, because corporate laptop is fully secure, fully managed, and it's acceptable for the end users because it is considered a work device. It's not considered a personal device. You don't expect to do much personal work on it, whereas with smartphones or tablets, they are in essence consumer devices. Most of what users do with these devices is personal, and they're only used to access work resources for a small percentage of the time. And therefore, a new solution must strike a new balance between the needs of IT for security, compliance, management, which remain as before, but also between the user experience. Users today expect more. They expect to enjoy the native experience that their smart mobile device of choice allows them, and they won't accept less in most cases. So our solution answers that specific balance, or provides such a balance, by adopting a gateway approach. So our solution is a gateway that sits strategically, I would say, in between the mobile device and the corporate data center. Our first implementation on this gateway is email. By email, I mean Exchange, Google Apps, and we support some other ActiveSync-enabled mail servers like Lotus Notes, for example. By email suite, I mean mail, calendar, contact, attachments, tasks, so the entire package. Next on our plate is to add more capabilities to that gateway using all the capabilities of the gateway, as I will share with you in a few minutes, to first allow secure access or secure file sharing and document management, and later on enable secure access to other corporate applications from the mobile device, again, within the same framework that our gateway is capable to deliver. Now, there's a great variety of smart mobile devices out there, as you all know, different form factors from tablets to smartphones to ebook readers, even Android TVs, and the number keeps growing, of course, the variety keeps growing. Each platform, it's important to note, each platform has its own security capabilities, which differ greatly between platforms. And adding to that, users today already own and use more than one device. So if up until a few years ago, users only had a corporate laptop or maybe a BlackBerry if they were high level enough in the organization, today users already have the laptop, the smartphones, probably an iPad, a Kindle, or other devices. So already today, users own 2, 3, or 4 devices, and the number keeps growing. So if we take all that into account, we claim that it doesn't make sense anymore to manage mobility on the device level. You cannot really manage such a great variety of devices. IT is not equipped, even with personnel, to support more than 1 or 2 devices per user. And therefore, what we're doing is we're abstracting security and management from the device level and raise that up to the server level. And from the server, we're able to enforce unified security policies across all platforms, becoming as device agnostic as we can. So this is our general approach. And let me show you how it works. This is a very simplified architecture of our solution. As I mentioned before, we're sitting in between the mobile device and the corporate data center, or in this case, the mail server. Now, if a mobile device connects directly with the corporate mail server, a user has to open an account, an email account on the device. He has to store the password locally on the device, store the address of the mail server on the device, and then all the messages are going to be pushed and stored locally on the device with the attachments. So everything is going to be stored locally on the device. Password, emails, and attachments. Now, if the device is then hacked or stolen or lost or infected by malware or shared with your family members and kids, then such sensitive data could quite easily be compromised. Now, in order to prevent that, we start the setting an account process on the server level. We ask for the user password on the server level. We then cryptographically break it into 2 halves. We store 1 half on the device, the other half on the server. It means that the corporate password is never stored from that moment on, is never stored anywhere. So only half, or a cryptographic half of the password, is stored here and here. Now, with every request for a new message, we take half the password from the device. It rejoins the other half on the server. We're recreating the corporate password on demand for every request, and then go fetch the message from the corporate mail server. Now, the message goes back here to our server, and here what we do is we basically strip it of its content. We leave no content within the message. We only leave or push to the device the headers, the name of the sender and the subject line. When a user gets a new message, he will see it in the list of emails because push mail or push functionality keeps working. The active sync session is still alive, but without the content of the messages and without attachments. Now, if the user attempts to view a message, then we ask him to authenticate to the Let Mobile server, and only then we present the message to the user on his or her device. Now, the message is only presented. It's not downloaded to the device. It will not cache on the device. It will not be stored on the device. Same for attachments. They will be presented on the device. Users will not be able to save them locally on the device or to open them with a third-party application that's on the device, because if we would allow that, then immediately the IT organization would lose control. The file could then be automatically synced to Dropbox or to iCloud, and then leaving the control span of the IT. So we prevent that as well. Now let me show you how it looks from the user perspective. In this example, I use an iPhone with 2 accounts. One of them is a private personal Gmail account, not affected by the fact that the corporate account is protected. The second one is the corporate account, which is protected by Let Mobile. Bear in mind that we don't enforce any restrictions on the device itself. As I mentioned before, we are device agnostic, so we're not enforcing anything on the device level. The device is not locked with the passcode or otherwise. Now, if I click on the All Inboxes view here, I see a list of all my messages. You can see that the first 3 messages are messages that I received on my corporate account. You can see the name of the sender, the subject line, but you can see that preview is blocked by Let Mobile security. It means that the data is not there. As I mentioned before, we strip the message of its content. And if you see the first message here, this is a personal message that I got on my Gmail account. It is transparent, open. Users can access that freely. Now, if a user clicks on one of the corporate messages, this is what he's going to get. He's going to see a message saying that email content is protected, asking the user to authenticate, to log in basically. The user then clicks on that link. He's being redirected to a login screen. He logs in, or she logs in. By the way, in this case, we use a passcode. Of course, we can enforce a more complex password in this case. And now the user goes back to the mail application and the message is there. It appears normally as if there was no security mechanism in the background. Now, of course, the user doesn't have to authenticate for every message. He authenticates once per session, and throughout the length of that session, the user can freely and transparently view their messages. Now remember, we use the native original email application of any device. We do not ask the user or enforce a proprietary email app on the user to access the corporate messages. We do not put any restriction on the device itself. In addition to that, we give the user a set of self-service tools to manage their own use of the service. Remember, we're talking about their own personal devices. They want to feel in control. They are reluctant to give or to submit control over their device to the IT. So with this portal, self-service portal, we allow them to do so. We allow them to, for example, remove a device or add a new device that they just got, change the corporate password, find a device on the map, and a set of additional tools. Now, this also contributes quite significantly to the low total cost of ownership of adopting the solution, because if I, as a user, can add my own device, then I don't need to call the help desk. I save a help desk call, and therefore the operational costs of adopting such a service are reduced dramatically. So if I summarize the value proposition for the end user, first of all, it's very important users get to retain control of their devices. These are their personal devices. As I mentioned before, they hate to let anyone else control their personal device. The personal use of the device is entirely not affected and not interrupted. So there's no passcode to the device. Of course, they can choose to have a password, but it's not mandatory for using or for reading corporate messages. The work use is also the least interrupted. We only ask for user to authenticate, but only when he attempts to view their corporate messages, not before that. And the fact that we allow users to manage themselves contributes to the end user's content. Now let's move on to discussing the Let Mobile solution from the IT perspective. So the solution first is a security solution. We enforce or apply security in different layers. We've discussed the client side. Corporate email and passwords are never stored on the device. In terms of communication, of course, communication is encrypted using SSL. The corporate password is never transmitted over a mobile link because it's not stored on the device. Only half of it is stored on the device, if you recall. And the fact that we sit in between the mobile device and the corporate data center allows us to actually shield access to the corporate data center or mail server, protecting that server from any kind of external attacks like denial of service or others. Now, again, our location as a gateway between the mobile device and the server also allows us to enforce fine-grained access control policies on the data. We allow that based on a number of parameters. Some of them are more standard. For example, the user group that the user belongs to, the type of device that the user is using. Of course, the user has to know their password. But we can also define and enforce policies using other parameters, like the location of the device, the IP address that the device is using to connect, the time of day, etc. Just to give you a few examples, let's say we have an EU citizen connecting from within the EU. Now there's an EU regulation that prevents users from storing corporate data outside of the EU. So the system will allow that specific user to access his attachments, his email attachment, when connecting from within the EU. But once he flies out of the US, for example, the same user with the same device, using the same password, will not have access to attachments in order for his company to be able to comply with this regulation. So this is just one example. Another one could be to prevent access to corporate data, email, and attachments after, let's say, 6 p.m. to enforce labor regulations in some areas of the world. And the list goes on and on. It's very flexible to define, very easy to enforce. And again, you can get up to very fine-grained levels of details. On the server side, data is of course encrypted, and we use a different key per user, so the data on the server is always protected. Even in the unlikely event that someone hacks the database, there's no really a way to get access to the data because you'll need to guess the password for every user. In terms of mobility management, we offer an extremely low total cost of ownership for the solution. The fact that we use standard protocols like ActiveSync allows for a very easy integration into any corporate network. Setup of our solution is very easy. We'll discuss deployment modes a little later, but setup in every mode is very, very simple. The management, the ongoing management offered is also very, very small. And the fact that users can manage themselves, again, contributes to a lower total cost of ownership. Our solution also offers a management station, of course. This is the dashboard showing you information about the type of devices that are connected and the distribution of devices, how many messages are protected, how many users, etc., etc. The system allows the administrator, or the station, management station, allows the administrator to set and define and enforce policies, for example, password policies, session policies, the length of the session. This could even be flexible based on, again, the location or the IP address of that specific device. So if the user connects when in country, then the default, let's say, is 90 minutes. When he connects from outside of the country, then the default is going down to 30 minutes because when you travel, devices tend to get lost more often, for example. But when the user connects from the corporate Wi-Fi network, then the session is extended, let's say, to 6 or even 8 hours, reducing the hassle of authenticating because we know that the user is in the building using the device from within the building, and therefore we trust that situation and extending the length of the session. Attachment policies, actually defining what types of attachments are never allowed on a mobile device, what types of attachments could only be viewed within the secure framework of Flat Mobile, and other attachments might pass through and be open on a mobile device. The solution also allows the administrator to set data leak prevention or data loss prevention policies based on the content of the data, the content itself, going over the content of attachment, the content of the email. For example, we can identify a 16-digit string within an attachment, and then the attachment is immediately suspect for breaching PCI because it may include creditor number or customer data, and then that attachment is blocked from access from a mobile device, just as one example. We can also allow administrator to mask certain information from the subject line. So if you have dollar figures there, we can block that as well. We can also communicate or integrate with existing DLP solutions that are already in place within a customer organization and inherit document classification data from that service. For example, if we have an attachment or a document that is classified as top secret, we can then enforce policies on our server saying that top secret documents are not allowed to be read on a mobile device. But secret devices, which are level 2 in that example, are allowed to be viewed on an iPhone, for example, or an iPad, but are not allowed on an Android device. And level 3, 4, 5 are allowed to be read using the Let Mobile secure framework. So again, this also gets very, very detailed and very flexible and easy to define and enforce. There are some additional security layers in the service, like risk score analysis, identifying the origin IP that the device is using to connect, and tracing or spotting anomalies there and alerting the administrator that there's something might be wrong with a specific device. Offline mode, we live under the premise that 95% of the users are going to be online 95% of the time. Now, for the others that are, let's say, road warriors, or travel much and are on planes a lot, we realize that we'll need a solution to allow them offline access for the duration of the flight, for example. So we do have a number of offline modes. One of them is, again, for flying, allowing the users to download data to their device before they board the plane, work on it when offline in the flight, and once they get access again, they land and they reconnect to a network, we're going to automatically resynchronize their inbox, remove the data from the device, and going back to the standard online mode. We also have a set of user and device management capabilities, a lot of information about the device itself, what type of device, when it was connected, and where it was connected from. We can identify jailbroken or rooted devices and enforce policies based on that. And we have a long list of additional security policies that can be enforced from the server, but I'm not going to go into the details with these. So if I summarize the value proposition for the enterprise, first of all, we offer ultimate security. There's no data on the device. The passwords are not left on the device. The DLP capability that I've just reviewed, risk profiling, which I've covered, the fact that we can enforce unified policies across all platforms, again, contributes to a very high level of security, and very detailed audit logs for compliance purposes. In addition, the administrator gets full visibility and control over the use of the service, and the fact that we're using, as I mentioned before, standard protocols, allowing users to manage themselves, allowing for a very easy implementation of the service, contributes to a very, very low total cost of ownership, and the solution is, in general, very cost-effective. Now, we have a number of deployment modes or options. One of them is a cloud-based software as a service. We have our own service running out of Amazon. We have customers connecting and consuming our solution as a service from the cloud. We have another option of installing on-premise, mostly for the larger, more regulated organization. We do have a number of customers that are using the solution in that framework. Again, even if installed on-premise, it's very, very easy to set up and get up and running in an hour or two, not more than that. The third option, we offer partners, MSP partners, to actually adopt the solution, install them in their data center, and offer it to their customer base as a cloud service, even white label with their own brand name. So this is another variation of our SaaS offering. Now let's discuss a few alternative solutions or alternative approaches that are available in the market today. We've identified 4 main categories that are available today to solve or to answer the enterprise mobility challenges. One of them is MDM, mobile device management. The other one is secure container. Virtualization is the third one, and the gateway approach, which is represented here by Let Mobile, is the fourth one. And we've compared them on 3 different levels. One of them is data security, the second one is user experience, and the last one is TCO or cost in general. Now let's start with MDM. MDM are legacy asset management or inventory management solutions. So in essence or by design, they are not security solutions. Security with such solutions is implied by the fact that the device is managed. In terms of user experience, the user loses control over the device. They need to submit control over their personal device to the IT. IT controls the device, enforces a passcode on the device level, usually requires an app that's going to run on the device, consume battery, consume computing power on the device. And if you're talking about total cost of ownership, whereas the license cost of MDM solutions might not be that high, the ongoing management effort of managing multiple devices per user can get quite significant. So this is MDM. When we're talking about secure container, security is considered to be very high. I'm not going to argue against the security of secure container solutions, but the user experience is deteriorated quite dramatically with such solutions. They, in most cases, force the users to use proprietary applications which are by design, I would say, inferior to the native application on the device. Users cannot enjoy the native original application. They need to go in between two separate applications to read both their personal and corporate messages. They can't see a unified view. They need to manage two calendars, one personal and one corporate. Again, they cannot see one calendar with their entire agenda. And the TCO is very, very high. The license cost is very high, and management costs are also significant. So overall, the TCO for such a solution is very, very high. Virtualization, we don't see many virtualization solutions out there in the market today yet. We know of a number of companies that are working on developing such a solution, and that will be probably introduced soon. In terms of security, again, probably the solutions are going to be very secure, but in terms of the user experience, they're actually taking the secure container approach to the next level. So instead of just going in between two separate applications for your corporate and personal email, now you need to go in between two environments. One of them is going to be personal and the other one is a corporate environment. It goes against the integrative user experience that mobile devices today offer. You have everything in one place. All the applications are connected to one another. You have your widgets on an Android device. You have maybe Siri on your iOS device. Everything is integrated, and this approach goes against that. In terms of the gateway, as I've covered before, we offer very high levels of security. The user experience is the best in this category, fully integrated into the native original user experience of the device, and total cost of ownership is the lowest. License cost is low, and the ongoing management costs are extremely lower than anybody else. Now let's share or discuss a few customer case studies. One of our first customers is ECI Telecom. ECI is a multi-billion-dollar telco equipment provider. Actually, they were using a secure container solution at first. They've been using it for the past 3 or 4 years, I think, and they've only used it for their executive level. They have about 50 licenses of that secure container solution. But when they decided to open up and adopt a BYOD program for the users, they've decided to adopt Let Mobile because of everything I've just mentioned. The user experience, the total cost of ownership, which is dramatically lower than any other solution. So they've turned to us, and now hundreds of the users are using Let Mobile for secure corporate email. Another customer of ours is a company called Yes. They are a TV satellite provider running out of Israel. This case study is interesting because at Yes, they've identified 2 distinct user groups. One of them are office workers. They're going to use Let Mobile on their smart mobile devices to securely access the corporate messages. Again, the devices are not going to be managed in any way, but they also have field engineers that are using a dedicated corporate tablet to access their support software. Now, they're also going to have email on those devices. So the devices are going to use Let Mobile for secure email, but are also going to be managed by MDM as part of their asset management framework at Yes. So 2 different or very distinct user groups with 2 solutions. Let Mobile for everybody, and for one group, they're also going to use MDM. It comes to show that Let Mobile could complement MDM solutions in different scenarios, or in this case, MDM solution complements Let Mobile. Another customer of ours is a government ISP this is an IT body that provides ISP and security guidance and consultancy services to different government offices and ministries. We're installed there in their data center as a private cloud, sort of like they're becoming the government MSP. And each office or government ministry which has their own IT infrastructure can consume the Let Mobile service as a private cloud service from that ISP. So the ISP has a super admin tool to manage the entire deployment, and each customer or internal customer get their own admin rights for their own implementation of the service. We currently have 5 internal customers, government offices that are using that, and we're planning to grow within that government. Now, if I summarize the why and the how, why consumer devices are everywhere. People bring them, if you like it or not, into the organization. So we encourage IT and we give them the tools to embrace that change, enjoy the productivity benefits of that, and don't fight it, of course. And how we do it, first of all, security by absence. There's nothing on the device to be lost, stolen, or hacked. We provide the best user experience, so user acceptance is key, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. So we provide the best user experience, and of course it's affordable, so you can support and give access to the corporate masses. You don't need to provide email access only to the 50 executives in the company or 200 salespeople. You can now open up for everybody, but still making sure that your data remains safe and secure. Now let me introduce you to Ariel Pisetsky, CIO at 888. Ariel is a seasoned IT and security professional. He's been with 888 for the past 4 years. He previously held several IT network, security, and IT positions at NetVision and Aaron. He has a number of certifications, as you can see, and I will now turn over to Ariel. Ariel, please.
Thank you, Dror. I would like to talk a bit about why we chose Let Mobile and exactly what was the process that we took once we started the implementation. First of all, we are an online gaming company. Security is paramount for us. We find that regulation really loves this solution. The ability to have your mail but not actually hold it on the end device does wonders for any auditor. Now, let's talk a bit about our challenges. We had abundance of BlackBerries. It is the de facto device that we used in the company, a few hundreds of them. We had a certain level of active sync for the older devices that we had, and we had a certain level, a very limited level of bring your own device, and that was mainly due to the fact that we didn't have a secure solution. So what we did to secure those devices is that we actually provided no real data to those devices. We provided text-only, I'd say, synchronization without any attachments. And again, the idea there was not to hold any information on the device itself as much as possible. And we were constantly looking on how can we really go and secure the user activity and the user base. How can we support the, I'd say, even onslaught of bring your own device kind of, I'd say, fashion. And at the end of the day, why not? I know that's not it might not be the most common IT answer for things. It usually is, why not? But in this case, really, why not? Let the user enjoy. Let the user connect to the office, to his email, when he wants, how he wants, and with a device that he finds kind of, I'd say, convenient for him. Now, we had a few solutions. We had a few types of filters. We had just a tad of, I'd say, proof of concepts with other solutions, and we didn't like them. It was or the stability issues or the support of multi-language user base that I have here, and above all, I would say the control of the hardware itself. I do not want to control the hardware. I do not want to manage the hardware, especially not in a bring-your-own-device environment. But beside that, the need to control the device, I'd say, is almost eliminated when you can provide the device with a secure email solution that never resides on the device itself, and therefore you do not actually have the need to control the device. I don't care what operating system you have, I don't care what patch level you have, and I don't care what you do with your device. It's your device or it's some type of corporate device, but I don't need to control it. Obviously, for corporate devices, there are issues of asset management, and there are issues of accountability and other options that might be out there for whatever IT division you work for. But when I think of our shop here and the solution that we provide our users with mobile phones and mobile devices, at the end of the day, I hold them accountable for returning the device and obviously not breaking the device. Beyond that, I give them a pretty, I'd say, free hand to do as they will with the device, put whatever wallpaper they want, browse wherever they need, and do whatever they want, as long as corporate information is secure. And here is that, in a nutshell, is, I'd say, Let Mobile. Now, the other ideas or the other kind of thoughts that we had behind this was, how do I deploy it? When you go for a full smartphone install base, as we have here, some of the providers, at least locally for 888, do not allow you to touch the phone before it leaves the packaging. Let's go iPhone for a moment. iPhone, you receive it, it's closed, you don't touch it, you don't activate it, you don't start it. It's not very enterprise friendly. And if my user already has the device, that means I have to deploy to that device. I have to reach out to the user, or the user has to reach out to me to receive some type of maybe application. And I wanted something that is very easy to deploy, at least at the handheld level. I would also like something that is easy to deploy on the server level, something that doesn't cause me too much grief. I don't have to install new, I'd say, applications on the Exchange server or any of my Edge servers. I want something very simple, maybe a proxy, maybe a gateway, something at that level. And again, the embodiment of all of these solutions came to us in the vision and in the actual product from Let Mobile. The security level here is also something that helped us make this decision. We came into the process thinking that we need to sandbox all the information and encrypt it and secure it. And we came out of this process understanding that we can have the information stay on-premise, and the device can actually view that information, but it can view the information only when online. There is obviously a add-on solution, but for us at the basic level, I can say only when you are online, only when you have connectivity can you watch that information. The information stays on-premise. That solves many of my problems of PII and where that information is and where did it go and what happens when the device is lost. So that was very easy for us. There are other considerations that should be made, I'd say cost and the interaction with the user. One of the interesting things here with this application is that I don't even need the device to be locked. I can lock the email only. Beyond that, I don't care what email application the user actually has on his device. So I have a nice combination here of locking only the corporate information while keeping the user totally free to do as he wills. We started out with checking the solution over the cloud. It was obvious that this won't be our end solution, but just to test it, to kind of feel the water, I would say. And that was, again, a nice surprise. We were able to just start using the product. We created an account. We set the different types of settings that we needed there, the connectivity back to our servers. We obviously allowed the specific cloud solution to access our server. And we tested it on one mailbox. And the setup was so easy that it immediately drawed us in to check the on-premise solution for this for our installation. But again, anything can meet your needs or your IT working procedures. If it's on cloud or on premise, it depends on your type of regulation, your I'd say appetite for risk, and in this case, obviously, information security. So we decided to go on the on-premise solution. Pretty easy. Obviously, we went with the load balancing solution in there to make sure that we have the availability that we want, that we're not, I'd say, stuck with one server, or if there's a problem with one server, we have the availability that we need and the redundancy that we need. We're running currently, say, approximately 400 devices connecting to, even more, connecting to this solution. So we have the extra, I'd say, CPU power and connectivity when, for some reason, a lot of users want to connect in a short period of time. But again, that was not a very big issue for us, and because all the servers are virtual, I'm not saying that their cost is lower. Obviously, virtual servers have a cost in themselves, but it was not one of those applications that demands a physical server. And this day and age, it's kind of surprising when you still have those applications, but this one does not. And then we had the actual rollout for the users and their need to sign into the system. We prepared a one-pager, and it was actually a two-sided one-pager, so maybe a cheat sheet, but it was a one-pager per OS, one for the iOS and one for the Android application. Android operating system. And then we gave the users this one-pager, and with this one-pager, they were able to activate their own devices. I'd say we had approximately a 90% success rate, and when I'm saying 90% success rate, I do not mean that 10% failed. I mean that 10% came to receive assistance. So that is the kind of level of ease that we have. Not all of these users are computer savvy. They are all computer literate, but they are, I'd say, a really normal group of any employees in any corporation anywhere that you can find. And with their basic knowledge, they were able to access the system and register themselves. The replacement came for all types of users, from BlackBerry users to simple phone users to older smartphone users. And the rollout was easy, straightforward, and really allowed the users to enjoy their email on their new device almost immediately. Now, the deployment is global. We have the user base around the world in different locations, from the, I'd say, Americas to Europe and the Middle East. Users connect mostly from their Android and iOS devices. We have different flavors of them, but I'd say that our happy users are now the iPad users. If in the past we did not allow iPad users to connect to our network in any which way, we still do not allow them to connect to the network, but they can now read and create content on their device. I actually have users, managers, team leaders, executives that now leave the office with their iPad only, because they have their emails. They have a view into attachments, a secure view, I must add, into attachments, and they can create content. And for some of these, it is good enough for the, I'd say, after-hours work that needs to be done. Not any heavyweight lifting there, not heavyweight editing of files, but absolutely the use of attachments way beyond what you could get in the little smartphone or in the, I'd say, older type of smartphone, and a good level of use that allows you to interact with content that you're seeing. Beyond that, it is the actual reason why we selected Let Mobile. It's easy. It's really straightforward. There's no other word to use there. The users can interact with it. We are now an enabling IT department and not just the naysayers. We allow our users to bring their own device, to connect with whatever email application that they use, and that is really an interesting part there. I did not expect that to happen when we started out, that users bring in their own email client. I myself use the defaults, but for some reason others like different applications, and that is a nice, I'd say, add-in to the system, and users respond to that. They now are not limited into my corporate say-how. The setup was easy, the integration was easy, and our ability to support users was easy. But I'd say beyond that, the support that we received from NetMobile directly was phenomenal. There's no other way to put it. I'd say at the end of the day that for almost any size of IT operation, if you want to have a easy-to-use, secure solution to access emails that is easy on the eye, easy on the pocket, and easy on the regulator, search no more. You found it with NetMobile.
Well, thank you, Ariel. Very nice spoken. Now let me address some of the questions that you've raised during the presentation. The first one is, we've deployed MDM already, but as you mentioned, not for everybody. Can you explain how NetMobile can be used to deploy for a larger population? Well, of course, I did mention that before when I discussed the YES case study. In most organizations, there are different user groups with different needs. So for one group, MDM might be the right solution, probably for corporate-owned devices that you want to manage and control as any other corporate IT asset. But in most cases, for other user populations or other user groups, MDM might be too intrusive, and therefore you're looking for a more lightweight solution which is not intrusive on the user. The management costs of that should be smaller, and this is where we come in. By the way, we charge per user, so users with multiple devices can use any device that they want with the NetMobile license. You don't have to pay per device, and you don't have to manage per device because we're not managing devices. Our focus is on the data, as I mentioned before. So with many of our customers, it's usually a very good fit, NetMobile complementing MDM or vice versa, because of the different needs of the different groups. Another question here is, I'm a reseller for both Zenprise and Good. Can you explain why we should resell you as well? Well, it kind of ties to the previous answer that I gave. Both with MDM and with Secure Container, they are great solutions, but for very certain use cases. So again, certain groups within the organization, let's say the executive level, or the sales team, when Good might be a good choice for them, or an MDM might be a good choice for them. When we're talking about what we like to call the corporate masses, they're probably not the right solution. Both the cost of the license, the cost of ongoing management, the fact that the users usually complain about the user experience with Good and with an MDM solution, this is when we come in and can give you as a reseller the option to tailor a solution using different products like ours and Zenprises or others and Good to answer the needs or the use cases of different user groups. By the way, we have a number of resellers that are actually promoting us together with an MDM. Zenprise, as you all know, were recently acquired, so I'm not sure about that, but this is a side note. This was a general answer that basically holds to any other MDM as well. By the way, a few of our resellers are using our solution as a differentiator, because it's very hard to differentiate today in the MDM space, and resellers that are selling an MDM solution plus NetMobile can again tailor a complete solution which is very much differentiated and unique when they compete with other MDM vendors. Another question here is, I'm considering BYOD, but I'm concerned about data leakage. Can you explain again what was your DLP capability? Okay, so first of all, the fact that we don't store anything on the device is a very major component of DLP. We prevent data from leaking through the fact that they are on the device. In addition to that, we prevent users from copying and pasting data from an email message or from an attachment. So again, it contributes to preventing data leakage. In addition to that, we have a set of tools and policies that we apply on the data, on the content, to prevent it from leaking out of the organization. So I mentioned before the example of identifying a credit card number within an email message or within an attachment, or identifying a social security number, or other expressions in a mail message or in an attachment, and preventing those from ever appearing on a mobile device. In addition to that, we can also work together with third-party DLP applications that are already in use within the organization, inherit from them classification data about the sensitivity of any document or any file, and apply policies based on that. So very sensitive files either block access to those altogether, or allow that only in certain locations or using certain devices, and so on and so forth. Another question, what is the usual time frame for deploying Let Mobile in a mid-sized organization? Well, it very much depends on the organization, of course, and the deployment model that they choose. Setting up the server over the cloud using our SaaS model, it takes minutes, not more than that. You can be up and running in minutes. When installing on-premise, it takes not more than a few hours. So again, very, very simple to install. Deployment is something else, of course. It's not only installing the software, but after the software is installed, you can train the users and invite them to add themselves, and then the deployment is also very, very short and straightforward, because setting up a Let Mobile account on a device is similar or easier than setting up an email account on a device. So it doesn't require more than that, in some cases less than that. So an overall deployment with installing the software, setting the policies, inviting users, and having users connecting to the service shouldn't take more than a few days in a standard mid-sized organization. Now, I'm afraid we're out of time. We did collect a few other questions. I'll make sure to put them all on a document and share it with you after our call. So I wanted to thank you for joining us today. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Ariel, for sharing from your experience. You have my email address here on the last slide, so I'll be happy to be in contact with any one of you. Thank you very much. Bye.